Hi, I'm Brian Walther, and we're going to just go through my DNA story. Now, like everybody else's DNA story, it's going to be a journey of discovery of what I found. Now, I was an orphan at 8 years old, and being an orphan is not as easy as you might think. I had no real identity of who I was. I knew who my mother was. I, unfortunately, was the one who found her body. And it wasn't anything traumatic or bloody or anything like that. It was just a simple, quiet death. And she just happened to be sitting next to the bed on the floor, and she had no pulse or heartbeat, and that's how I found her. Got the neighbor, and they called the police and the ambulance and all that, called emergency services, and they took it from there. After that, my sister and I went and lived with an aunt, and then subsequently moved to other people's houses. So we were never too far from the family, but we weren't in the family of ours, in our own family. So this happened in Tacoma, Washington. I was born in 1959, so that makes me 66 years old, or almost 66 years old. When I did my DNA test, it was about 6 years ago, and what I found was my father. And I had spent the better part of 50 years looking for this gentleman, and I did finally find him. Now you may be asking, well, how did you look before? Well, it was a letter writing campaign. You wrote to the Army. He was in the Army. And the story was, he got married to my mom in June of 1958, and in August he was sent over on duty assignment to Germany. And after that, I was born. So we discovered, he got sent in August of 1958. Now, I was born in July of 1959, so you can do the math and figure, okay, well, that means that I was conceived somewhere in between September and October of 1958, and that's when William was gone in Germany. Now, my mother went over there, and apparently William could do math too, because he figured out that she was pregnant from somebody else, or maybe she just went and told him. I don't know. She never left the story with me. She never told anybody that I know about what really happened. So all I can say is that just speculate as to what happened and go by what my father told me. He had met her at a party on base. Now, my mom had been in the Army. My father had been there too for a short time. But we all just lived outside of Fort Lewis and McChord Air Force Base, so there was always, military people around. So apparently they met at a party on base, and they hit it off, and they did a number of things together. I think he took her water skiing at one time, according to my father. I don't know if she was very good at it, but my father was always around the water. He was always hunting, fishing. He was a kind of a sportsman. He was also a musician. He was a pilot who taught himself how to fly on the farm in North Dakota. He was a contractor. He did a lot of different things. He's a very interesting guy. I wish I'd known him before. Probably would have gotten along with him. Very gregarious guy, very outgoing. But let's step back to where the DNA test took place. Now, I worked for the city of Chula Vista for 35 years, and I developed relationships and friendships with the people in the office, and a gal that had her cubicle next to mine decided she was going to gift me half the purchase price of the Ancestry DNA kit. And I thought, okay, great, I'll do that. So I did. I took the DNA test, and I came back with a whole bunch of relatives on both sides of the family. Now I had to figure out what this all meant. I found one first cousin on my father's side of the family who I couldn't reconcile who she was, because I knew all the surnames of all my aunts and uncles on my mother's side, so this was somebody else. It had to be on my father's side. Well, all said and done, I took the DNA test and got the results back, contacted my cousin Lisa, And this started a whirlwind of searching who my father was. Now, my father was in a family of 12 siblings, a pretty good sized family. My mother was in a family of 17. These were farmers. And one thing you do on farmers, have kids because they're free labor. When you move to the city, you don't have so many because they're expensive little filthy utility things that run around and help out with washing the car and whatnot. So, I already did that. Contacted Lisa, who put me in contact with Kathy and Patty, and they'd done a lot of genealogy stuff with the family. So here we were trying to figure it out. Now we could eliminate Uncle Bob because he was Lisa's dad, and he was a uncle by that. Now we could eliminate one of the girls because she died at a very young age. The other two would have known if they'd had a kid, and none of them, were confessing to it. So we had essentially 8 boys to deal with. One stayed on the farm his whole life, never left. He may have come out, but he wasn't hanging out with my mom. So we could eliminate him, and so we were down to 6. So I took a 23andMe test, as several of the other cousins in the family had done 23andMe, and that narrowed it down to 2, Philip and Anton. Philip's very shy, a bit younger than my mom, but Anton was within a year of her age and very gregarious, very outgoing, very much a charmer. And we figured it was likely him. So we figured, but my cousins and I, that we'd order a DNA test, have it sent to them, and they'd get him tested. On the way over, his stepdaughter decided she would explain to him what was going on, and she explained they were taking him over to my Uncle Bob's house, that there was a guy that was trying to find his father, and he'd eliminated all but Philip and himself, and he said, "Oh, that must be Laura's boy." Well, here we have a smoking gun, because my mom's name was Laura. So he'd been around. He was at the hospital the day I was born. He wasn't there in the hospital room when I was born, but they had told him I was there. So, and you'll see some of this a little later on. Anyhow, I spoke to my dad. I was in a meeting with my staff, and I just kind of got up and walked out, which I never do. I usually excuse myself when I come back. End of the day, the meeting, the other guys could handle it. And I just spoke to him for about 10 minutes, went back in the office and told Lindsay, guess what? Spoke to my dad. And so this was on. Now, speaking to my cousins several times over the next few days, we decided that I would come up. They were a little worried, a little hesitant, because it was such a large family, and it might be overwhelming for me, but I speak in public all the time. I'm usually around a lot of people all the time, and so I had no problem with that, with meeting my dad and all these cousins. And so my daughter and I flew up. We stayed with my cousin Kathy, met them, met Kathy, her husband, my cousin Patty, my cousin Joyce, and my Aunt Ann. That night we had dinner together, and the next morning we went over and met my dad over at my stepsister's house. And you'll see the video here.
There he is.
Hello.
Okay.
Someone's here.
Hi. Dog. This must be Brian.
Yes. Hello,
Kristen. Hi.
Nice to meet you
Oh,
finally.
it's great to meet you. This would be your father. Anton, this is Brian.
Hi.
Oof. Oh, we gotta stand up for it, of course. Yay. Oh, look.
How
How cute
cute
is
finally
that?
after all these
Only 59.
Good to see you.
Good to see
I have to
you.
wonder about you for many,
Yeah.
all those years.
Well, I didn't know where to look.
Well, I finally found out through a friend of mine that worked at the hospital out there.
Yeah.
And he told me to go out there and they'll to find Laura and find where everybody's at.
Because Anton
And
was
then
always
you
curious
found
how
out
Laura was
before
doing.
me.
Yeah.
And looked.
I wish the whole thing was I was told somebody completely else was my father.
Well, so was Anton.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so
Neither one of you had any idea.
No
It's
idea.
crazy.
Isn't that sad?
It's weird and sad. Yes, it is. This must be Naomi.
this is my daughter. This is your
Hello.
granddaughter.
Hello. Grandpa.
Grandpa.
Oh, nice to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Now, as you can tell, she's taller than I am.
I stand out a little bit.
I asked Anton on the ride back over here if Laura was tall or short,
And she was short.
but he said I think she was maybe a little taller than me. So
Sit down, Tommy.
yes, everybody sit down. Let's have some coffee or something. I just turned on the water to make tea or whatever for those people who are not coffee drinkers.
So, that was interesting, wasn't it? Now, however you may see that, it is like the most awkward thing you'll ever do in your life. And if you've never had to go through this, it's very emotionally a roller coaster of emotions that you go through, because I don't care who you are, nobody prepares you for that. Anyhow, we met him, spent a few hours there with him before he had to go back to the home and get some medical stuff done. And then we went over to my Uncle Bob and Aunt Dorothy's house, where they had a house full of people because they had 8 kids, and they had not all of their kids, but most of them there, and many of their grandkids, and I believe some of their great grandkids. So there was a lot of people. I'm talking with them, and I turn around and see my daughter and my cousin Lisa exchanging glasses. And I'd never realized how much they looked alike until they were standing side by side. As you can see right here, quite a resemblance, as is my resemblance with many people in the family. So we spent a couple hours there and then went back to where we were staying at Kathy's house. And the next day we had a reunion over at Visitation Catholic Church in their hall. And they invited all the aunts and uncles that could make it, all the first cousins, and a couple of them had to bring their kids because they didn't have childcare. But they asked that they limit it because there was capacity to the building. So we met most of them. I never did meet my Uncle Andy, who lived in Sacramento. Unfortunately, he passed before I had a chance to meet him. But we did get to meet most of them. The good thing is many of them were still alive. Since then, some of them have passed. Unfortunately, I did go up for a funeral. My Uncle Bob did pass. I had just gotten home from a trip up there and couldn't get the time off to go back up. And so this is going to happen. There was a time my dad got ill and he was in the hospital. I went up and spent time with him. It was during the pandemic, and fortunately the hospital did allow me to visit him as much as I could. And they were very gracious, and he got out of the hospital, was put on hospice. They didn't think he was going to live at first, but hey, he graduated hospice. Tough farmer boy. So, moving on, I went up there several times for various reasons, one of which work brought me up there. I do officiate for Ironman upon occasion, and Ironman had a race in Washington, so I flew up and spent an afternoon with him before I came home. And then I was up the one time, it was winter, and I was visiting, and he wanted to put flowers on the grave of his parents. And so we went up there and did that with my stepsister. And we drove around, we talked, and he looked around, he was a little somber. And I never put 2 and 2 together, but a couple weeks later, I got a call from his guardian and the care home that he was very ill and probably wouldn't make it throughout the night. And I made arrangements immediately to fly up there the next morning on the first flight out, but he didn't make it. And I got there after he passed. I wish they would have called me earlier, but what are you going to do? Can't do much about that. People's going to be people. So went up there and made arrangements, and then in the summertime, when more of the aunts and uncles could attend because the weather was warmer and the COVID outbreak was subsiding, went back up there and had his funeral and burial. One of the funny side notes is my stepsister was going to eulogize him because I didn't think it was appropriate, since I had only met the man a couple of years earlier, for me to eulogize him. But she called me at 1 a.m. saying, I've tested positive for COVID. So I ended up eulogizing him anyway. But I've stood in front of crowds and introduced senators and representatives and various dignitaries. No trouble standing in front of another crowd. I do it all the time. So we buried my father, and my daughter went up to Seattle to the Seafood Fest with my son, who lives there, and sprained her ankle. I went up later to pick her up because we were flying out the next morning, and she got in. Fortunately, we changed hotels, and they had this handicapped shower, so it was more accessible for her because her ankle was pretty beat up. And so the next morning we get to the airport, I take her bag, swing it up on the shuttle, and tear my shoulder, this tendon in my shoulder. And so we were just having fun. At this point, it's just getting better and better all the time. Flew home without any further incident, and unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to be back. I will be visiting eventually, soon enough. I haven't made plans, but I will be visiting. So, how'd you like this story? Leave a comment, please. I'd like to hear from you if you've had a similar story. If you have questions, because believe me, this is a cursory. I just went over it really fast. This is not in depth. Believe me, the in-depth story, I wrote the book already. It's a lot more detailed. There's a lot of story there. But the best part of it was I got to meet my dad. That was really important, and he got to meet me at a time in his life when he actually needed that little something, because shortly after I visited the first time and met him, his wife died. So now and then the COVID pandemic hit, so nobody was visiting him except me when I could fly up and visit him. And this kept him going for a period longer, and it was beneficial for him. I got my story, I got my family, I ended up winning. It was a win-win for everybody involved. So leave a comment, tell me how you liked it, share it with somebody. There's probably somebody out there with a similar experience that could use this, and they can even contact me. My email is down in the description. It's coachbrianscorner@gmail.com. And also tell me where you're watching this video from. I'd like to know. It's interesting to me what kind of reach this is going to get. All right, well, that's all I have for you. And I hope if you have an opportunity to do your DNA test, there will be things you find that are surprising. Even if it's that small ethnicity that you didn't know you were part of. I am 98% or 99% European, but I didn't know that there was almost 8% of Italian and Greek in me. Now I know why I tan so well. So with that, I'm going to let you go and have fun discovering your DNA story. Bye.